Welcome to the Creative Tools Podcast. My name is Ashay, and I'm immensely passionate about using technology for creativity. On this podcast, I talk to various creators about what tools and technology they use to be creative. My guest today is Emily Frew. Emily Frew is a makeup artist in the San Francisco Bay Area. She has been doing makeup for film, commercials, television, and music videos for the last 9 years. She also has been doing prosthetic makeup for the last 6 years. Hey, Emily, thanks for visiting my podcast.
Hi, how are you?
So let's dive right in. My first question is, what do you create?
So I create special effects makeup prosthetics, that are used for like film and television and sometimes theater and photo shoots.
Oh, great. So your work is always something that we can touch, correct? It's not digital.
Sometimes for like the process of creation, I'll use 3D modeling. So at that stage, it would be digital, but eventually, yeah, it all becomes tangible.
Okay, great. So I want to kind of have this interview in 3 sections. So let's talk about the pre-creation aspect, where what you do before you start creating, then the creation aspect, and then the post creation aspect. So for the pre-creation part, what I'm interested in knowing is how do you receive inspiration for your creations? How do you record the inspiration for yourself, and how do you retrieve it when you want to create from that inspiration?
Okay, great. So to receive inspiration, I would say I get inspired a lot. I go on a lot of like hikes, and I get really inspired actually by like textures. So sometimes I'll like when I'm out on a hike, I'll like gather like a bit of moss or like a mushroom or something, just because it has like a really interesting texture to me, because I think so much of like what I do is like finding those like very subtle like textures and finding a way to replicate them so that they make sense in nature, you know. So I would say from nature I get a lot of inspiration for sure. And I definitely have a growing collection of like interesting looking sticks and stuff at home. And I also I sound so silly when I say this, but I love Pinterest. I'm kind of like a Pinterest fangirl. I know that Pinterest kind of gets a bad rap because like moms use it for baking recipes, but it's actually a really great platform for like organizing inspiration and finding new inspiration, because it's like it shows me new things based on things that I like. And even if it's not something that I find on Pinterest, it helps me to stay organized. Like if I'm at like an art museum or an art gallery or something, and I really like something that I see, then I can take a picture of it and upload it onto Pinterest. So I use it as like an organizational tool, and that helps me a lot because I'm not a super type A person. So yeah, I use Pinterest a lot. I'm inspired by textures in nature, and then developing a conversation with art and artists that I respect and admire. You know, I obviously I don't replicate people's work, but I think that like especially with the realm of prosthetics that I like to make, I love like sci-fi prosthetics. And so with something like sci-fi, it's definitely like you can't make something sci-fi without it being at least a little bit inspired by nature and other artists. So yeah, continuing the idea and concepts of other artists' work is definitely a big part of my inspiration process.
Great. So let me ask you about the texture thing that you just mentioned. So you mentioned that if you go on hikes and you find a texture or you find something, do you like physically take it with you and store it somewhere? Oh, is it? Okay. So
yeah.
So, but then where do you store it? Like, do you have like a cabinet? Do you have like a shelf? Like,
Yeah,
where do you
I
keep it?
have like an office area in my apartment that's like Uh, Definitely an artist's environment. I would say I'm a pretty organized person, but when it comes to my office, it's beautiful chaos. And so yeah, I definitely have like a cabinet that's like just interesting stuff that I've found, interesting textures. And then replicating them is like um always like a trial and error type thing. But it's really fun. So
And how about the Pinterest thing? So the Pinterest, do you use that as an app, or you use it on the computer? How do you use Pinterest?
I guess I usually use it on my phone. It's something that, I mean, I have used it on my computer. I would say if I'm mood boarding for an actual specific project, that's when I sit down on my computer. But if I'm just like feeling inspired and want to look at like art and ideas, and other like photo and video projects, then yeah, I'll do it on my phone. It's a good way to be more productive with my phone time, than like just,
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a lot of time sinks that you can do on your phone, and it makes me feel good that like that's an app that in a quiet moment at the DMV or something, I can pull up Pinterest and be productive, you know.
What uh, what does Pinterest give you that other apps don't? Like what specifically you like about Pinterest?
Well, like I said before, I think Pinterest kind of gets this like rap that like, you know, it'll show you DIY projects for your
Right.
house, kind of like a mom app, right? But it actually like when you start using Pinterest and like collecting like, you know, I see a lot of sci-fi art on my Pinterest, you know. And so if you start collecting a certain thing, then that's what it shows you. So most people, I think probably in the volume of what Pinterest has, like it's probably mostly recipes and DIYs that I have no interest in, but that's not what it shows me, you know. So it's in terms of like its algorithm, I really like that it it's very favorable for finding things that I
Hmm.
actually like. So
And
yeah.
how does it help you organizing stuff?
Well, I it has like multiple, I don't know if you've used it before, but it has like
No, I haven't.
multiple folders. So like you would create like if I'm making a mood board for a client, then like maybe, you know, they have this idea that they want to do like okay, so last week I worked on a music video set, and they had this idea that they wanted to do like prosthetic hoods that went like from the neck up, like a whole hood that's like we called them manimals. they're like they're like men that have like the concept for the music video was like it's an all-female band, and the lead singer is like a predator, so she was kind of like scaly and snake like, and then all of the manimals are like prey, so they were like lambs, oxen, stuff like.
Hmm.
And so when I was making a mood board for that, then it was like showing me a lot of like, I started collecting inspiration that I knew of or things that I'd taken pictures of that were sort of like macabre, like metal aesthetic, and, you know, saving like images of like goat horns or whatever that I really liked. And then Pinterest started showing me more of that, you know, and then it gets to where it becomes very easy to make a mood board actually, because it's a good organizational tool and a good like seeking inspiration tool as well.
So
So that's how I practically use Pinterest.
so I haven't used Pinterest a lot, but I know that you can like literally like digitally pin uh posts to a board. Is that how it works? Like what's the visual interface that you work in, or is it just
Yeah, it's
folders where you put stuff?
folders for sure. If I don't know that a lot of people know this, but with Pinterest, you can also download, what's it called? Is it called a widget? I think is the term. Like a plugin on your
Hmm.
browser where like then if you're scrolling through any website at all, then like there's a little button that you can click to be like, oh, like I saw this thing on
Hmm.
any other website, and then you can either copy the browser or you can copy the image that you're
Hmm.
looking at and pin it to your board. So
Hmm.
yeah.
Okay. And so for recording inspiration, I understood what you're saying. But then when you when you want to retrieve the inspiration when you are actually creating something, how do you remember to go back to what you have recorded or pinned to your board and then pull that up?
Isn't that the challenge? I guess like that's where the organizational aspect comes in handy, is like now I've probably got like 40 folders or something on Pinterest that are like, here's my Manimals folder and here's my, whatever folder. But even just digging through my folders and finding like, oh, like that was a project that like I personally wanted to put on the back burner, and then like being able to like retrieve that inspiration is very helpful for sure.
So the organization part basically helps you with retrieving the inspiration.
For sure. Okay. For sure. I'm not a person that struggles with like the ambition of creating. Like I usually have a lot of like energy for that and like drive, I guess. But if things are disorganized, then it can fall apart quickly, I guess.
Has it ever happened to you that you had recorded something on Pinterest or somewhere else, and when you started creating something, and then you were like, "Oh, I kinda remember that I have pinned this somewhere, but I don't know how to find it." Like, did you lose your inspiration anytime? That you have
not on Pinterest. If I neglected to put it on Pinterest, I guess I am the type of person in regular life that I'd be like, I don't need to write it down, I'll remember. You know what I mean? And so if it's a moment like that, then yes, I would lose it. But I can usually find something on my Pinterest, even if I misorganized it. I can be like, I'll find it.
Can you tag stuff on Pinterest as well, or you have to put it in folders?
Yeah, you can tag stuff, and you can also like do like collaborative mood boards with people. I end up using a feature a lot where it's like, if I was doing like a music video with someone and they also used Pinterest, then we could make a board together and kind of see, because I think it can be a challenge for sure in the creation process, it can be a challenge to see each other's ideas. It's like if you have just like a phrase or a description of what the project is, it can be interpreted in two whole entire different ways. So like to kind of visually look for inspiration and adapt based on what you're seeing other people, it's a way that you can kind of meet in the middle when it comes to the creation process, which I really love.
And you also mentioned about referencing, keeping other artists' work as a reference as well. So do you also use Pinterest for that or something else?
Do I record my own work on Pinterest? Is that what you're asking?
Either that, or do you have access to like other artists' work on Pinterest that you...
So I use Pinterest as more of an organizational tool than a social tool, but a social and or marketing tool. But I know of a lot of artists that use Pinterest as like a way to promote their work, which I think is really interesting. I don't personally do that, but I see people do that a lot, and I think that's really cool. So then you can follow another artist and see, like, be it an illustrator or 3D modeler or something like that. There's definitely, or a photographer, anything, there's definitely people that use it as a marketing tool, which is cool.
Do you also take notes and record them somewhere?
I use the Notes app on iPhone a lot. I'm running around a lot, so I guess actually I use my phone probably a lot more than my computer.
So what do you use the Notes app for? Again, like do you also record inspiration in text form in Notes app?
Yeah, occasionally. Yeah. If I would say if it's like something that I need to remember to do later visually, or if it's like I love to read, and so if it's something like I love authors that are like visual writers, so if someone describes something that I can see and I find that inspiring, I might like jot down like a sentence or two from a novel, because it just triggers it's not what they intended, of course. They're not writing about special effects makeup, but like if it's like, a description of something in a book that I feel like I could evolve that idea, then I'll definitely jot that down as well.
So that means then the Notes app also has like some bits of your inspiration, and Pinterest also has some bits of your inspiration, and your cabinet has like physical inspiration. Okay. All right, great. So let's now focus our attention to the creation part. So now, when you're creating, what tools and what technology do you use?
So like I was talking about before, the textures are a very important part of prosthetic making because it's a balance of like the mediums can be unforgiving, right? So if you are building something, like if you're I would say like if you're building like something on a skin texture, it can be very difficult to replicate a skin texture like a whole like neck up prosthetic, like the manimals can kind of be whatever, but usually it's not that, right? Usually it's like you're doing a horror movie and there's like an open cut or something, and you have to find a way to build this thing on top of the skin, but then it also has to blend into the skin. So textures are really a very important part of it. Or conversely, if like you are building someone like Vecna from Stranger Things, then it's like, he doesn't have to have any human texture on him. And actually, it's better if he doesn't, because he's a monster, And so textures are a very important way to, I guess, make things seem real or unreal. And so the mediums that I like to use for if I'm making it blend into a skin texture, I really love to use liquid latex and rice flour mixed together as like a latex paste, and then I sculpt with that. Specifically rice flour. This is something that I've found out after a lot of trial and error, because like flour just doesn't cut it. I don't know. It's something about rice flour really like makes a very, very nice skin texture. So I use that quite a lot for if I'm building something, let's say additively. So additively meaning like if you're building something that will sit on top of the skin, like a cut or a prosthetic of some kind that is supposed to be skin. But then a lot of times, for more complicated prosthetics, you have to do sculpting with clay and then make a mold of that and then pour latex into that. So then you have to make the clay have a skin texture, which is done with like tools and patience.
but you are talking about the actual hand molding part. What I want to understand is, you also mentioned something about like you use some 3D modeling tools before you start creating. So the reason I'm asking this question is, like, for example, what I have observed is, for what digital technology has given creators is an ability to make a choice rather than a decision. So earlier, when everything was analog, if you put a stroke of paint on the canvas and if you wanted to see a different version of it, you had to use another canvas. But with the digital technology, if you do a digital stroke, you can copy it, you can change its form, change its color, and now you have a choice between the first one and the second one to choose from. So and then in creations, it always happens. Like for films, I have observed this a lot, where I'm when I'm writing or when I'm building like a storyboard, the film is actually getting built in my head, and I'm already seeing it. And then what happens is, when I shoot and when I get the audio and video for the film, then the process is only uncovering from the stuff that I have in front of me to see the film that I'm already seeing in my head. So, so do you experience something like that? And what do you do? What do you do to make sure that you are doing it right? Like, how do you try to create opportunities for you to like have choices for your creation?
Yeah, I use 3D modeling a lot. So I've been 3D modeling for Oh gosh, now I don't even want to tell you how long because it's been like 8 years. But yeah, I love 3D modeling. 3D modeling is definitely at the very least like a big time saver for sure. Because when we're talking about things like, so with textures, 3D, like 3D printing in my experience isn't really quite there
Hmm.
yet. Maybe with like a $1 zillion 3D printer, or maybe
Yeah,
in a
yeah,
few
yeah.
years. But for making forms, it really helps a lot for sure. So I'll even use it as like a sketching platform in a way where it's like if I have an idea in my head, but I don't quite know how it will work out, building it with clay will be, yes, exactly like you were saying, like a lot of back and forth and trial and error.
Yeah.
But I'll sometimes build something in, I use ZBrush, which is a really amazing program. If you're not familiar, it's like basically digital clay. You start with like a sphere or
Oh,
something, and then you push
okay.
and pull until you get anything at all. And it's a really great way to set out an idea before I actually build it with clay, or I'll build it, print it, and then build on top of it. I've done that a lot as
Wait, wait,
well.
wait. So ZBrush is an app?
ZBrush is, it's a, yeah, it's like it's by Pixelogic. It's like a computer software. It's not a phone app.
But when you say you start with like a digital clay and then you mold it, so how do you mold it? Using a mouse?
If you hate yourself, you could use a mouse, or you could use or you could use a tablet, like a drawing tablet. You know?
Oh, okay, okay,
Yeah,
okay. It's a drawing
yeah.
tablet. Okay.
Yeah, a drawing tablet, or I've seen people use I don't, but I've seen people use like I don't, it's like a knobby looking thing that sometimes engineers use for 3D modeling, but it's much more, ZBrush is, compared to a lot of other 3D software, it's much more organic. And like it has measurements and stuff, but they're all arbitrary, so it's definitely a more creative sculpting program than like something like Rhino, which is all geometric.
So this is really interesting because I had never heard of ZBrush. So how do you interact with this digital sculpting software? So one, you said tablet is like one thing, but then are there any like specific devices? Like when you were saying, I was thinking of like a squishy ball. If you had that, and then and then if you just like
No,
press on it, the clay might change. Like does it have any
oh man.
specific
Um,
devices for that?
Usually people do use like the like a Wacom tablet, where
Okay.
it's like a tablet that you then have like a pen to, it's so difficult to describe like without seeing it, you know. And so you have a lot of different they're called brushes,
Hmm.
but it's like if you're in Photoshop or something like that, you could take like the pen tool, or you could take
Yeah.
like the brush tool. It's like that, but in a 3D way. So like one tool might, like one brush might be more of like a texture tool, and one tool might be like, let's take this whole side of like a sphere and pull it to make it more like egg shaped, you know. So it becomes incredibly detailed. Probably a lot of like video games that you know of actually use ZBrush. Like I know like Uncharted used ZBrush, and like The Last of Us used ZBrush. It's very much like organic in design, where it's like it's amazing what people can build with it, actually. Like I'm experienced with it, but like I mean some people are like Renaissance masters with ZBrush, and it's like it's really a remarkable thing. And it's one of those programs, like it's not intuitive to learn like at
Hmm.
all, to be honest. Like with Photoshop, if you had never opened Photoshop before, and you know you opened it, you could probably figure
Yeah.
out how to doodle a stick figure. You can't just figure out how to use ZBrush. Like you really almost have to like take a class, because, or like watch a lot of videos, because it's really um a massive software. But I love it, you know. It's really great for
So ZBrush is, I think, so just like in films we make storyboards, which is our like prototype of the actual film. ZBrush is, I think, a prototype before you actually mold a physical clay. Like you
for
can,
me, yes.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
for
mean, you
sure.
can build like a prototype with ZBrush. Okay. Are there any other softwares like that, or ZBrush is the main one that you use?
There's a few. I'm like a ZBrush fangirl. I love ZBrush. It's a really remarkable software. And I love that the business itself, it's owned by a company called Pixelogic, and I just have to say they're amazing because they're not trying to like swindle money out of people. Like you buy it once and it's not cheap, but you have it. Like it's not like a subscription thing.
Oh,
It's
okay, okay.
like you have to buy an update thing. It's like I bought it 9 years ago or 8 years ago or something like that. And I've had it ever since. And every update is like grandfathered in, which I think is very unique of them
Yeah,
to do.
great. And ZBrush does not have an app. Am I correct? Like it is a
So
okay.
it's a
Because
computer.
it might be easy, right? Like if you had like an iPad app of ZBrush, then you could touch the actual instead of using a tablet and a pen, you could possibly touch the
Yeah.
digital clay and then mold it.
Yeah. I think they also make like tablets that have like screens too.
Oh, okay, okay.
So I mean you could use one that has a screen, but it's really not that much of a learning curve to like
Yeah.
be like drawing here and looking up. So
Ah, okay. Great. Um, and then my question, let's talk about the post creation aspect. So you have created something. Now, how do you release, how do you distribute, and how do you market your creations?
Mm. I mean, I use social media a lot for, I guess, marketing myself. But I working in the film industry, it's there's not a lot of like distribution per se. I mean, I guess some people sell their prosthetics on like online, like if you
Hmm.
wanted to go on Etsy and you could buy a prosthetic.
Hmm.
That's not something that I do. I kind of just like making something and applying it myself, and it's from start to finish, it's my own thing.
Hmm.
So it's more of um personalized product, you know, from me to the filmmaker. But in terms of marketing myself, I mean, and making sure that, you know, I'm still paying the bills and stuff like that, I'm a very, very social person, and I think it's really important in the film industry to be very social,
Yeah.
because it's amazing how important every connection is. Like, I mean, I might like get a call next week for a job that like I was referred to by someone that I worked with 5 years ago. Like it's very much an industry that's just like that. It's very
Yeah.
social. So that's how, in terms of like post creation, like I am able to find the next work through just networking. And I know that sounds like kind of a vague answer to like, but it really is that though, you know. And I'm sure, you know, you work in the film industry too. You can attest to how
Yeah,
important that
definitely. I mean,
connection.
I met Uni because of that. I met you because of that. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's very much networking. So so uh, two specific questions. So one is about social media. So for social media, I mean, what I have observed these days is you can't just be the creator in your art form. You have to know how to make videos. You have to know how to make reels. You have to know how to post on Instagram. You have to know how to be consistent on social media. So how do you keep at it? Do you use any like social media publishing tools? Do you use any reel making tools? Like what do you do?
No, I would say I do post like not as frequently. I post regularly, but I don't post as frequently as most people because I'm also I see a lot of people like putting out content just to put out content, and I
Hmm.
think it's important to be consistent with what you do, but I also think that it's important to have value in what you do. You
Hmm.
know, if I'm not 100% proud of something that I'm posting, if it doesn't have value with like either it's message or it's visual content or both, hopefully, then I'm not posting it. I'm a very big fan of quality over quantity.
Definitely. I so resonate with that. You have no idea. So what I used to do was, um, I started posting on social media as well, and I wanted to be consistent. So I kind of like created reminders for me that, okay, you have to post on this day, on this day, on this day. And then after a while, what used to happen was, because those reminders were reminding me to post, I was posting something. It wasn't necessarily that I was passionate about, or it wasn't something that I enjoyed, but only to be consistent. I hated that. So I mean, I stopped that after a while. But I completely get what you're saying. Like, if you think of it as a wave, I always think that like the frequency is productivity and amplitude is creativity.
What a
So
great analogy! Oh my god!
so
Wow, that's brilliant.
and there is a difference between productivity and creativity, right? Like, productivity is all about destinations, like how do you reach destinations faster, but creativity is about the journey to those destinations, and you have to amplify that journey. And you can't just post because you want to maintain frequency. You have to post because you want to maintain amplitude, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, that's a uh, great discussion about that. So another question that I had was about the release part. So release part meaning, um, how do you make sure that you document all your creations? And there is a reason why I'm asking this question. Most of the times what happens with us creators is our own creations could become inspirations for our next creations. So we have to make sure that we can find our own creations that we did like many years ago. And so how do you make sure to document what you did for your creations and your creations themselves?
I mean, I really do use like I would say Instagram a lot, where it's like, again, if it's something that I'm totally 100% proud of, then it's going on my Instagram, except for like open wounds. I don't post it on Instagram
Oh,
just
okay.
because no one wants to see it, except for someone that's hiring for it. And then I have a folder on my computer that's like gore. It's just gore, and so then if anyone is asking me like, hey, have you done like boil work, have you done like open wounds, or have you done blah 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 blah, then I have it on my computer, and that's how like I find it. But I usually like I'll send people my Instagram because it's like a good showcase of like what I do. And then if they want to see the more M-rated, R-rated, not M, R-rated stuff, then it's like it's in a folder on my computer.
Okay. What is the biggest challenge you face in your creation process?
The biggest challenge I face in my creation process. I would say organization, like what we were talking about, and that's why I'm such a big fan of Pinterest. Is just like I'm not someone that runs into like artist block a lot. It's more of just like making sure that I stay organized and that I stay on track with idea. So like sometimes I might be making something and it evolves into something else, which is
Yeah.
fine if I'm just making it for me. But if I'm making it for a client, then like it kind of has to be what they want it to be. So I would say like organization and not letting my imagination wander off with something.
Great. And how has digital technology impacted your creation process?
I mean, I just have to say, like, 3D modeling really is like a game changer for sure.
Yeah.
I cried when I got my first 3D printer, actually. And yeah, I mean, being able to, like you said, prototype an idea, or being able to like build something as um like a base for something else is not only a big time saver, but it's a big like I don't have to start all the way over. on a concept, if I don't like something about it, it's like an easy change or a reprint or something like that. Whereas like the traditional way of making prosthetics is like I was talking about, building with clay, molding, and then pouring. And then it's like that's fine, but like then if I get to the pouring stage or the application stage and I don't like something about it, or the client doesn't like something about it, then it's start over from the clay. It's like days lost, really. So 3D modeling has definitely been a
Right.
streamliner for what I do.
Correct. And one question is, you mentioned something about creative artist block or creative block, and you don't have it, because I think there is so much influx of ideas that probably artist block is something that you don't necessarily experience. But then my question is, when you are creating something, do you feel like lonely sometimes, that okay, I need help right now, I need like some companionship, and not just necessarily with human companionship, but like I need some help in making a decision here? Like, do you feel that? I feel that a lot will film editing. That's why I'm asking.
I for sure do. Yeah. I mean, I would say like, so I just moved to the Bay Area, from the Midwest. And in the Midwest, just like that's where all of my friends and family are. So like, a lot of times, like, it's like I will soundboard ideas. I'm a big fan of soundboarding ideas, off of people from back home. And that's a good way to connect with them too. So yeah, I would say, for sure, that's a way that like, sometimes you've been looking at something too long. Do you ever feel that way? You've been looking at something too long, and then it's almost like you just have to walk away from it a little bit or soundboard it with someone else. And then like it gives you fresh eyes to keep working. Cause sometimes it's like you have like tunnel vision and you just have to walk away.
I mean, you have to get yourself out of that habituation, because if it becomes a habituation, then it's neutral to you. Like you don't really you can't really create with that in front of you. So you have to get out of it. And then
I forget to eat sometimes, so like I'll be like, okay, maybe I need to go eat something and then I'll come back.
You just have to like look at it from a different angle. Last question. So what is the vision, your vision for your own creations? Like with the tools and technology that you see around you, do you see yourself creating in a different manner in future?
Creating in a different manner. I am hoping that someday, like, 3D modeling will be to a point where like I can do most of my prosthetic work digitally and then just like apply like, a texture or something on top, or a finish on top, so that like maybe it gets to a point where like I can build a 3D prosthetic that's like all printed, and that would be fantastic. I'm really hoping like that like 3D scanning could be like a way, and 3D scanning definitely isn't there yet, but like 3D scanning could be a way that like I could scan Ashay's face and then like design a prosthetic that fits onto his face comfortably, and then like it's already fit to the curvature of your face and it's good to go, so that I think would be the future of prosthetic building.
Great. Thanks a lot, Emily, for your time. I really enjoyed talking with you.
Yeah, it was nice talking with you too.
Thanks. Thanks for tuning in. If you are a creator, I would love to talk with you. Please connect with me through my website or social media. See you in the next episode.